Coming up on today's episode, some time ago now I started to look around at those thin client PCs. This actually came with a version of Windows 7 installed. Well, there's that SATA connection there for the half-size SSD card. Product ID is Z90D7, model number ZX0. And I thought to myself, what can I actually do with this? For that and more, stay tuned and I'll see you right after the intro. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. Some time ago now, probably a year ago actually, I started to look around at those thin client PCs. I've always found them quite interesting, quite fascinating, probably because of the size, and it kind of makes me wonder how they actually work. In fact, the one I've got here isn't actually that small. You can get them smaller than this. This example I have here is a Dell Wyse thin client PC. Its product ID is Z90D7, model number ZX0. And my example here was manufactured in June 2013. I think I paid around about £20 for this. Stumbled across it in the basement here the other day when I was tidying up. And I thought to myself, what can I actually do with this? What's it capable of doing? Because primarily these were just used as an interface, because the main file system would be at another location, and this was really just a terminal. So they didn't need to be too fast or too power hungry. The wattage of this computer is very low actually. It's only around about 20 watts, I think, 25 watts. There's no fans in it whatsoever. So I find this quite interesting to see what I can use it for. Maybe it'd be a good media center PC. Or then I thought to myself, how about an old retro gaming PC? This actually came with a version of Windows 7 installed on the internal SSD hard drive. But looking at it when I first turned it on, it was really just like a terminal, like I said before. It was a very stripped down version of Windows 7. In fact, there was hardly anything in it whatsoever that was of any use. So I formatted that, and now I'm going to attempt to put Windows 10 on it. I'm hoping it will go in okay. I'm hoping this machine will be fast enough. Let's have a quick look at its connectivity. On the far left there, you've got a DVI port for your monitor. And there's another monitor port next to it for more recent monitors. You've got two USB 2, I think they are, and also two blue USB 3 ports, Ethernet connection, and your DC input. And around the front there you've got your power button. I think that lights up blue with a little power LED indicator next to it. Headphone socket, mic socket, and two more USB ports. So there's certainly plenty of connectivity there for many USB devices. With just 4 screws holding this together, the top just slides right off to reveal the inner workings, or should I say the motherboard, because there are no moving parts in this machine whatsoever, no fans and no mechanical hard drive. You've got 2 large heat sinks there with a nice copper pipe for the GPU and CPU, and that there is the small SATA connection for the half-size SATA cards. The one inside of this is only 4GB, so that's certainly going to need an upgrade. With 2 DDR3 memory stick slots there, full size I'm pleased to see. There's certainly some room for upgrading. This came with a 2GB card. I think I have another 2GB stick somewhere. 8GB is the maximum. Let's take a closer look at the motherboard itself and the internal connectivity. Well, there's that SATA connection there for the half-size SSD card. Quite surprised actually the one, this is only 4GB, so that Windows 7 version must have been very stripped down, because when you try and install that it does say you need at least 9GB. When I first noticed that slot there, I thought it was a M2 slot for storage expansion, but it's actually a PCIe slot for the Wi-Fi card that's not with this model, unfortunately. Apparently that was a optional factory extra, and that's what those 2 holes are for on the back, for 2 antennas for dual band. And there's actually another SATA connection on the board there. And that white plug on the left I think is the 5 volts for it, so you can power up the hard drive. And the white slot there, I'm not actually quite sure what that's for. Looks like a ribbon connector. And right at the back there you've got a couple of connections for what I believe is for an expansion board for legacy support, for like a PS2 keyboard and mouse, serial port and maybe parallel. And there's a couple of smaller plug sockets there at the front, 2 small white ones. So let's have a look at the BIOS, shall we, see if we can get into that. In order to get into the BIOS, you just press the delete key on the boot screen. Unfortunately, I didn't film this part, but basically when I tried to get into the BIOS, it was actually password protected. And luckily, doing a Google search, I found out that the password is quite standard. It is Fireport, capital F, F-I-R-E-P-O-R-T. So once I put that in, I was into the BIOS. So as you can see, we can see the processor there. It's an AMD GT56N, running at 1.65 gigahertz. System memory 640 kilobyte, extended memory 2 gigabyte, memory speed 1333 megahertz. As you can see, they have already upgraded the SATA hard drive there to a 32 gigabyte one. I managed to get one of those off of eBay for I think around about £15, I think it was. And SATA port 1 there is none, which will be that expansion that you can have. Frame buffer size is actually the onboard graphics, internal graphics card that's built on board. I was quite surprised actually this got to 1 gigabyte, so that's pretty good. But of course it will take that from the system memory. As you would expect, all the other usual things you see in the system BIOS. Obviously we want to be enabling USB boot on this. As you can see, there's an option there for wireless LAN. Obviously as we don't have the card, there's not really any point in enabling that, although I did leave it on at the time. I changed the SATA mode because I thought it would need to be at that point. But later on I find out that it actually stops the computer from booting. So now I've had a look in the BIOS and enabled USB booting. I thought it was time to upgrade the memory because I'm going to want at least 4 gigabytes of RAM ready for Windows 10, especially with it being sharing some of that graphics memory. So I had a look through my stash of old memory and I found a couple of sticks that I think might go in. But of course it didn't boot, did it? I don't know what was going wrong with it. But I got there in the end, but unfortunately I had to mix 2 different brands, which I don't usually like doing. People usually recommend it that you keep them the same. In fact, now I think about it, I don't even think I checked the speeds to make sure they were the same. But anyway, it's working now for now. So we'll see how we get on with these 2 gigabyte sticks. At least I've got 4 gig of RAM. When I first powered the PC up with that new 32 gigabyte SSD drive that I bought off of eBay, turns out it had actually been formatted properly using the Blanco software. So next up was time to install Windows 10. I didn't realise that my version I have on a USB flash drive was actually from way back in 2016. So this is going to need a hell of a lot of updates before this is running smoothly. Just a note as well about that SATA setting for IDE or SATA in the motherboard settings. I had to swap it back to IDE because the computer did actually stop booting. While I was on a restart, I thought I'll change it to SATA to speed things up a little bit. Well, I thought it would speed things up, but unfortunately it didn't work, so we had to stick that back to IDE mode. But I'm pleased to say once we were back in IDE mode, installation was smooth. The initial install went in absolutely fine, and then obviously of course along came the updates. I think it took about 2 days to do all the updates. Because I was at work and I didn't want to leave it on during the day, so I just did it in the evenings while I was around. And here we are all set up finally after all those updates. The computer seems to be quite nippy actually. It's quite fast during the using Windows itself. Managed to get it connected to my network okay with an Ethernet cable on the back, so that was good. But, looking at the graphics display settings here, the maximum resolution was quite disappointing, just 1280 by 1024. I was hoping to go a bit higher than that, especially with it having a I think it was a 512 megabyte dedicated graphics card on board. Obviously you can change that in the BIOS up to 1 gigabyte. I tried YouTube on this to see what that would be like, because obviously that's quite a hungry platform to use, memory hungry, and it did struggle to be honest, unfortunately. But I mean I won't be using this for YouTube anyway, so it's not really a problem. As I said before, I really want to use this as a gaming PC. Which takes me on to the next bit. I thought I'll try installing Grand Theft Auto Vice City and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And I'm pleased to say that they both went in absolutely fine. Had a quick go on them here, as you can see. Can't really hear the sound very well because the onboard PC speaker is absolutely minute. It's really just for Windows sounds. And probably a few other little things, but nothing major obviously. It's just a little monaural speaker. And now I think about it, actually I did have to run compatibility mode. Certainly for Vice City here, I don't think I had to do that on San Andreas. And the graphics settings on this one here Vice City, I put everything onto maximum and it's working fine, but I suppose it would do, wouldn't it, with 512 megabytes of graphics card to play around with. But, certainly bring back some nostalgic memories here playing this again. It's been quite a long time actually since I've looked at this game. So while I was making this video, I did some more research on the graphics memory, and it turns out someone said in a comment on another video, if you put it up to 1 gigabyte, YouTube should run smoothly. But what I found now is I can't get back into the system BIOS. I'm hitting the delete key there on the splash screen as it loads. It's not bringing it up. It says entering, and it just continues to load into Windows. Tried removing the hard drive, and it still won't load. Another way you should be able to enter the BIOS is by pressing F12 to bring up a boot menu, and then you can select BIOS, but I can't even get that to come up either. So I thought to myself, I'll try doing a hard reset on the motherboard, because there's a little jumper pin there that you can bridge to reset the BIOS, but even that's not working either. So next up I thought, I know, I'll try removing the BIOS chip itself, because it's in a little cradle so it can be removed. I thought doing this would remove all power from the BIOS chip, therefore resetting it. And that's when disaster struck. As I tried to pry up the little lid with a pair of tweezers, the whole CMOS mount broke away from the motherboard. I just couldn't believe it. 3 of the pads had completely been torn off, along with 1 visible trace. This being a multi-layered board, I thought that must be the end. But no, that wasn't the end. If you know me and you've watched any of my other videos, you know I don't give up easily. So be prepared now to see a Frankenstein reinstalled BIOS chip. Here we go. So it's not pretty, as you can see. In fact, I did not think this would work, to be quite honest, so I didn't make much of an effort. I thought I'd have a go at resoldering it. I've got the 4 pads down on the right hand side and the top left one. The second trace that was broken, I traced it down to the bottom there with a bodge wire, and it still didn't work. But then I thought to myself, that bottom left pad, I wonder if it's an earth. And sure enough, I attached a wire to it and held onto the case, restarted the computer, and it came on. I couldn't believe it. So we're back in business. Again, I apologise for the shoddy workmanship there. I really didn't expect it to work. I'm not even going to tidy this up. I'm just going to leave it as it is, because it is actually working. So with that said, it's time to get some proper PC speakers attached to this. Okay, let's try some gameplay. I may have to edit out the music parts, because YouTube may pick it up.
What's happening, homeboy? Hey there, come on, get out the car. From San Fierro? It stinks, don't it?
Sounds like you got a nasty cough.
Yeah? No shit.
Here, baby, try this.
Soothe?
That Soothe annihilates cough and cold symptoms.
Wow, I'm seeing donkey.
That's the patented cough-killing concoction of codeine, morphine, and alcohol. Your cold will be history. How's your cold now?
Who the hell are you?
I'm your wife, fool.
Soothe kills a cough fast. And for the kids' chesty cough, it's Soothe Junior, the medication that comes in a fun, animal-shaped container kids will love.
Hey, look at me. I'm binging on medication just like that.
I've just switched off the anti-aliasing mode here completely, because I think it was starting to slow down at certain points when the car was driving fast. You forget just how basic the graphics were on these games, but they are getting on a bit now.
Come on, ladies, get low.
And back in the day they were state of the art, weren't they? I always thought the PC version looked better than the Xbox and PlayStation 2 version. They all seem quite soft and not as detailed.
Better you than me.
Come back here. Should have come quiet.
The car just run the policeman over there.
So you gonna...
I never actually completed this game. I completed all the previous ones, but never this one. In fact, no, I didn't complete the first 1 and 2 actually on the PlayStation. I never completed those either.
Stop touching me, asshole. I'm gonna be... That's where you go.
Well, now I've switched off that anti-aliasing, it's certainly handling the graphics a lot better now, fast speeds. The long distances are appearing as it should be, and the game's not slowing down. Using an infrared camera, I thought I'd do some measurements of the CPU and GPU heatsinks, doing some gameplay here with GTA San Andreas, to see how they're coping without a fan, and it looks like they're coping just fine. Highest recorded temperature I got was around 49 degrees centigrade. So I won't be adding a fan to this, certainly not for the moment anyway.
You complete fucking moron!
Let's try a bit of Vice City, one of my personal favourites. That's a shame. Yeah, that is a shame actually. It doesn't meet the system requirements to do on-screen recording, and that would have been quite helpful for this video actually. Hearing those sound effects there, the menu system brings back so many memories. Let's see if it will cope with the maximum resolution.
Stay away from me! I got a poisonous lizard in my food. He'll kill you in 2 seconds. Hank, please, we've been through this. You're not well. Hobo is dead. It's time to get back to the medication.
I actually remember playing this online back in the day. There was a server set up somewhere, I can't remember exactly how we did it, but you could set up an online game and play with people from all over the world, which sounds like nothing these days obviously, because that's how it all is. But 20 years ago, obviously it was a different world. And of course there was a lot of mods for these games as well, a lot of cheat codes you could type in. I remember having a DeLorean actually in this, amongst other things. You could actually add buildings as well to this. And I think you could change locations as well, if I remember rightly. I think I've still got all that somewhere. I need to probably do a video on that on its own.
When we raise 25 million, we will build a 50-story tall likeness of me. If we raise 300 million, the statue will rotate so I can look over this great city and cast an evil eye on degenerates. And when the imminent nuclear strike occurs, those who put faith into action with sufficiently generous contributions will join me inside the Pastor Richard Salvation 8669 Save Me.
Knights of the road, here's your stallion.
Well, I think we're just about coming to the end of this gameplay session now. And I must say I'm really impressed with this Dell Wyse PC for gaming, certainly on these two old games here anyway. It's coped really well. In fact, I've got the graphics settings on maximum and everything, apart from San Andreas. Just had to turn the anti-aliasing off, and it's working absolutely fine, even at maximum resolution. Well, there you have it, the Dell Wyse thin client PC. It's a shame I broke the BIOS chip off, but I got it working again in the end. A bit butchered, I know, but at least it's still doing something. Still don't understand why I can't get back into the BIOS to adjust the graphics memory. If anybody knows a way how to do that, please let me know in the comments. Pressing F2 and F12 just isn't working, and it seems like a lot of other people have had the same issue when you look online. There's still support for these actually on the Dell website, if you have a look for them. Quite a few downloads for it for the Windows 7 operating system, security updates and such. And of course there's a lot of room for modification to this PC. You can quite easily add a second SATA hard drive, mount it to the lid and get one of those male to female connectors. Take your DC 5 volts off that socket on the left hand side. You've got some extra storage space. This could be a good server or an MP3 server even for music. And it's still a good web browser as well. There's plenty of these on eBay. They seem to be coming and going all the time, and they're very, very cheap. In fact, you can buy a brand new one for around about £40 to £50 with a 16 gig, I think, or 32 gig SATA hard drive included. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching that with me. I'm glad I made this video. I found it quite interesting in the end, actually, despite that little mishap with the BIOS chip. But these things happen, don't they? It's certainly a gentle reminder to be a lot more light-handed in future. Well, I guess that just leaves me to say, as always, thanks for watching, and until the next video, I'll be seeing you. And if you did enjoy watching this video, you may want to take a look at some of my other videos on similar themes. I'm always buying something on eBay, some more piece of technology, and trying to repair it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.